welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a tag. It's called the first and last book tag. I saw this on LovelyLikeLaura's booktube channel, and it's 10 questions, and I'm just going to go through the questions. So the very first question is, what was your first video and your last video that you posted? So my very first video would have to be, I'm not positive, but I think it was a day out with my son, and he was 4 years old, and I posted that. I originally made my YouTube channel to post videos of my children as they were growing up, to share with my mother and other family members who don't live close by. So I did post a video, and it is still on my channel. If you could go all the way down to the very first video, it is an interview with my son. I took him out on a date, and we had ice cream in a store, and it's so cute. He is 4 years old in the video. So the very last video that I just posted was at a book haul. It was a book haul that my grandmother gave me, 3 books, adult books, and I just posted it about an hour ago. Question number 2. Who was the first booktuber you watched and the last booktuber that you watched? Okay, the very first booktuber I watched it with my kids. We were searching YouTube, I saw Christine at Poland Bananas Books, and my girls especially were watching this, and we thought she was so crazy that she jumped up in the air and she went like this and crazy. I was like, oh, I didn't know there was booktube people that did this. So yeah, so she was the first booktuber that I actually watched. The one that I watched just recently, and I'm actually doing the same thing, is her name is Laura as well as my name is Laura, and her channel is LovelyLikeLaura. So that's the one I just recently watched. Okay, question number 3. What is the first book you ever remember buying and the last book that you purchased? Okay. The first book that I remember buying for a haul would be Gone by Michael Grant. And that's this one. And no, I haven't read it yet, but I did hold this over a year ago. Then the last book that I just purchased today, and it's actually a pre-order. I just pre-ordered this. This book does not come out until September. I just pre-ordered Everything by Nicola Yoon. So I just pre-ordered that one. Question number 4. What is the first novel you remember reading and the last novel that you just read, that completed? The first novel I remember reading is back as a teenager. I remember reading this book, Flowers in the Attic by V.C. Andrews. Now, when I was a teenager, I hated reading. And this book, I read this book, I read the next one, the next one, the next one. I kept reading the same author, but I kept reading. I really liked dark books at that time, and this really kept me reading. So, yes, this is what I remember. I remember reading, and this is not the physical, real copy of the book. This is a copy of the book that I just recently purchased because I remember reading this book. The most recent book that I just finished would be Winger by Andrew Smith. And this book I really, really enjoyed. I read this for a book club, and I liked it so much that I will definitely be picking up the next book, which is coming out in September. So this is the last book that I just completed. Question number 5. What is the first dystopian you ever read and the last dystopian? Now, I don't really read dystopian, but I did read this one, Divergent, last year, and I really, really enjoyed this one. This was my favorite book of 2014. And 2015, I just read this one recently. I think in February, I just finished this one. That's the second book in the trilogy. So, and I really enjoyed this one, Insurgents. And I also watched both movies, and they were both good. So, I do own the third book, but I haven't read it yet. Question number 6. What is the first paranormal and the last paranormal? I think that way back when I was in high school, way back, I remember reading Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. But if you asked me what the book was about, I wouldn't know. So I am picking something that I read recently, not really recently, but like in the 2000s. I would say Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, and I really enjoyed this one. And the one that I most recently read, which is in 2015, would be White Hot Kiss by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and I really enjoyed this one. Question number 7. The first book that made me cry and the last book that made me cry. The first book that made me cry, I think I cried in this book, would have to be What Alice Forgot by Leon Mority. This was my favorite book. This was about Alzheimer's, and I read this in 2011. This started me reading again. And I really, really enjoyed this. And since then, I like to pick up all her books that she wrote. The most recent book that made me cry would be a nonfiction book. And I've already did a review of this one. It's 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. So this one made me cry, I think, in the 2nd or 3rd chapter. So anyway. Question number 8. What was the first series you ever completed and the last series that you completed? The very first series that I ever completed would have to be the V.C. Andrews Flowers in the Attic books. I read book 1, Flowers in the Attic, Petals on the Wind, If There Be Thorns, Seeds of Yesterday, and Garden of Shadows. And I read these back in high school. Man, that had to be 30-something years ago. That was the only one that I really completed. And recently, I haven't only completed one series, and that would be... I'm going to grab it from the printer. The series that I completed recently was the Maradaya series. So I read Unbecoming a Maradaya, The Evolution of Maradaya, and The Retribution of Maradaya, and I read these in 2014, and this is the only series that I completed. I loved book 1. I loved book 2. Book 3 was so a disappointment for me. So anyway, but I did really, really like the book 1 and book 2. Question number 9. What was the first book you couldn't finish, and what was the last book you couldn't finish? I started reading back in 2011. There was a long time period where I wasn't able to read because I am raising triplets, and how can you have time to read? But anyway, in 2011, I did pick up a book on my Kindle, which I never, this is the first book I picked up on my Kindle, and I haven't finished it. It is still on my Kindle, but I haven't completed it. So that would have to be Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. It didn't interest me so much, and I never finished it. I did, however, watch the movie, and I enjoyed the movie, but I did never finish the book, and it's still on my Kindle. Okay, and the one that I most recently did not finish, I picked it up from the library, and this is a series, and everybody loves this series. It is a graphic novel. After a while, I got really fed up with the book, and so book 4, I started to read it, but I never finished it, and I sent it back to the library. It would have to be this one, Saga. I was getting really fed up with this book because it jumps around way too much, and there's lots of graphic images in this one that are just inappropriate images and inappropriate sex and stuff like that in it. So I did not finish the series. I don't know if it was in my, I was just getting fed up with it and I sent it back to the library. I don't own these books. I did read 1, 2, and 3. I really enjoyed book 1, but when I got to book 4, I was like, I'm not going to finish this, so I sent it back. Question number 10 is the first person you would tag and the last person you would tag. I would tag anybody who watches my videos. Whoever wants to do this video, just do it and then link me so I can watch it and comment. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!